Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Quad Education webinar on writing personal statements. And today we're going to talk about how to start brainstorming and choosing your personal statement topic. And we have two fantastic Quad consultants with us today who are experts in all things college applications and personal statements. Quad Education is a college consulting group, and we help students and families through the college application process. And we work with folks who are just starting out thinking about college, like late middle school, early high school, just to start planning for classes, extracurriculars, all the way through SATs, ACTs, getting letters of recommendation, writing your personal statement, choosing what schools to apply to, all the way through you getting those acceptance letters. It's a pleasure to have you all with us today. So today we're going to introduce our two panelists. We're going to talk about what colleges ask for in a personal statement and why they ask for a personal statement. We'll talk about how the personal statement impacts your application. We'll talk about how brainstorming can help you and steps to take while you brainstorm, tips for successful brainstorming, and then we'll open things up for a Q&A. So if you have questions throughout this presentation, pop them in the Q&A box and we will definitely get to those at the end. Just a note as well, as we are recording this webinar and we will be sending it out to everyone attending, so you can have access to it later. All right, so today we have Arianna Lee and Marina Lidow with us today. And I thank you both so much for being here. Arianna, can you introduce yourself for us?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Arianna Lee. I'm an admissions counselor here at Quad and a graduate of Dartmouth College. I have my degree in neuroscience, and I've helped countless students like yourselves, countless families navigate the complex but not so complex college application process. So I love diving into this topic as far as students always asking, what should I write about in my personal essay? Let's have fun and let's dive into this topic together.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Arianna. Pleasure to have you as always. Marina, can you introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Marina, and I'm an admissions counselor as well here at Quad. I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania as an undergrad, went to the Wharton School and studied finance and management. And then I did my MBA at the University of Chicago School. And I love helping students and families out with this process. I think it's actually a really cool experience to have quite a bit of like self-reflection that can actually help guide some of those really important decisions. So hopefully it's a nice kind of like positive way to look at it too, is that you'll learn a lot about yourself during the process.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, Marina. It's fantastic to have you. So let's dive in and talk about why colleges ask for personal statements. Arianna, you want to start us off here?
Absolutely. So colleges ask for personal statements because, one, they want to understand you more than just the number. So a lot of admissions officers only get that. So without the personal statement, they're looking purely at the numerical data, your GPA, what classes you took, your AP test, what you might have scored. So your personal statement allows them to see beyond that. This allows you also to differentiate you from other applicants. So with any college application, you'll be faced with tough competition. People are applying from everywhere. So how can you stand out further? So remember, the application pool is filled with students who excel in their academics. They might be similar to yourself. They might be type A students like yourself. So your personal statement is your chance to talk about yourself beyond that. So this is a great time to assess your potential as well. So as officers read your personal statement, they'll also be assessing your potential to contribute within their student body. Are you a good fit for the campus? Are you going to add value to the campus culture and how you can succeed within its ecosystem and beyond? And then also it allows them to see how you'll fit in. So personal statements are also used by admissions committees to determine whether or not you'll be a great fit within their institution, but also they'll be looking at whether or not you have the alignment of values and goals and how you'll fit within the college's culture. So this is a great way for you to shine and stand out.
All right, fantastic. Marina, do you have anything else to add to that?
No,
right.
that's fine.
So now we'll talk a little bit about why or how a personal statement impacts your application.
Yeah, I mean, I think Arianna alluded to this, but this is important. It is a big element of your application, a really great opportunity to go beyond those numbers, to really have kind of that personal connection with the admissions committee that you might not be able to get just through like short phrases and numbers. So definitely an important piece to take advantage of. Just as kind of an anecdote, when I applied to grad school, when I got my acceptance letter from Booth, there was actually a personal note on my personal statement that said, like, I loved this. I think you'd be a great fit. So just a kind of an example of how this is a really important way to kind of like connect with that human. So treat it as something, as an opportunity.
Fantastic. Arianna, anything else to add there?
No, that's awesome to have that personal note and that personal connection to the admissions officer that read your application. That just goes to show you that that admissions officers, much like ourselves as people, we connect to the why behind someone's, what they're bringing. So tell us your why.
I love how you just put that. I think it's important. And also like how both of you mentioned that like these are read. It's a big way that admissions counselors are learning about you and who you are. And so they are important. They do get read. So put the effort in. All right. So the reason why we are here today is to talk about brainstorming for your personal statement. I know it's a very daunting thing to begin and start. And brainstorming is kind of that first step.
Awesome. Yeah. So how can it help you develop a strong personal statement by brainstorming? So it is truly essential to, one, take the leap, just start. Brainstorming is a great way to start. It's a way for you to kind of flesh out any ideas that you might have been thinking. It'll ultimately help you to get all your thoughts out, give you the opportunity to reflect on yourself. And when brainstorming, you'll have the opportunity to realize your values, accomplishments, and milestones. This is truly a therapeutic process, whether you realize it now or not. The more you go through brainstorming, thinking, and reflecting on your life and all of the challenges and things that you made it past, and just how you've grown, as well as how much maybe you have to grow. But this is a great way for you to kind of look back and just take a second to just think, write out everything, even if it seems insignificant, write it out.
Fantastic. Marina, anything else to add here?
I think I just reiterate like this values piece. Sometimes it feels maybe like a little bit tedious to be like, oh, what are my values? Or, having that kind of discussion with yourself. But I think the more that you can really think about it, even if, it means like looking at a list or whatnot and trying to figure out which ones apply. To Arianna's point, the more you will learn about yourself, the more you will be able to articulate a strong and unique story about why, you're a good fit with this school.
Well said. All right, so let's dive into specific steps that you can take to begin brainstorming.
Yeah, so the first step is to learn about the schools that you're applying for. Obviously, part of that will be making your list, and maybe will happen before you get to the personal statements or sort of at the same time, but figuring out what schools you're interested in. That part of that is going to happen by figuring out what their mission, vision, values, and culture are. But you should also kind of take note of that stuff as you're thinking about your personal statement, because it's a great way to figure out, okay, what schools do I connect to, and how do I show that I connect to those schools, and how do I show that I could be a good fit with those schools? How do I highlight values that are relevant or that would allow me to make a good contribution here?
Absolutely. Arianna, anything else here?
No, that was wonderfully put. I will say too that make sure emphasis on the word authentic. Make sure that you are not trying to be something that you really are not. It's okay if you look and do more research on the school and realize, hey, they don't really align to what I actually am looking for. It's okay to realize that and look for more of a match in the school that you're applying to, so that way you can truly be that authentic fit.
And I will also say we do have a webinar coming up in a couple of weeks on how to create your school list and how to think about what schools you want to apply to. Feel free to sign up for that, and we'll go into some more detail there. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what should be on your personal statements.
Absolutely. So it's definitely important to do that thorough research on, like we said, step one, look into the school's values and kind of how you align to that. But it's also important to do research on what you should be including in your personal statement. So things are who you are, your purpose, what is your vision, what is your mission, what would you want to do in the future, what makes you unique, what have you done, or what have been hobbies or things that have interested you thus far that really matters to you, and how do you feel that this is important to tell. Finally, as a part of your research, it's essential to know the common app prompts, which will ultimately guide your reflection and brainstorming. So what I always recommend is for students to, one, create a common app account if you haven't done so already, and start adding in the schools that are on your list thus far, and also start looking at the prompts that are on the common apps, personal essay, the personal essay prompts, and kind of brainstorm those and maybe see which question kind of aligns to what you have already been creating in your brainstorm.
I think that's great. And I know we have a consultant who one of his exercises with students is to go through each of those prompts and put down a couple bullet points about like how you would answer those, just so you have an idea of all of them. But I think the other thing to know is I think it's the last prompt is always write about anything that you want. So you can use those prompts. They're great guides, but you can really write about anything. Marina, do you have anything else to add here before we move on to step 2?
No, I think that's great. I covered it beautifully.
All right. So making lists.
Yeah, making lists. I love lists. I feel like a lot of people in the audience may enjoy a good list. A list making exercise, a little checking of boxes as well. But yeah, lists are a great tool for kind of starting this process of figuring out what you might write about. You can make lists of the things that you've accomplished, the milestones that you've achieved, different things that have been challenging for you, going from like the smallest challenge to the biggest challenge. Just because it's on the list doesn't mean you have to write about it, but once you make that list, and if you make it kind of as exhaustive as you can, that's going to help you to identify some of the patterns that you can really leverage, and some of the values and the things that really mean a lot to you that maybe you didn't even realize. So definitely encourage exhaustive list making, passions and interests, even things like looking around your room and figuring out like what are the 10 things that are most important to you in this room, or what are the 10 things that you think say something about you in your office or in your space. Silly lists, like go crazy with it kind of. I even think about like lists of like, what are the last 10 things that made me laugh, or the last 10 things that made me like be quiet, whatever it is. Just be kind of creative about it. And this is a really nice way that, like, especially if you're feeling like I don't know what to write about, this is an easy exercise that you can check off and move forward with. And lessons learned is another really great one. I'm sure others have other ones to share. Arianna, anything to add, or any kind of lists that you enjoyed making?
I love the 10 looking around the room and naming 10 things that you love or that you maybe couldn't live without. Like that's awesome. I don't know, the desert island one, like if you could only bring 3 items to a deserted island or something of that nature. I don't know, there are a ton of awesome creative writing prompts that will just help get the juices flowing, and where you can start thinking, oh, I can write this, or I like this creative idea. I've had one student that wrote about Rube Goldberg machines, which are like the marble going through a loop and causing all these other things, interactions and chain events to happen. That was something I was really passionate about. And his whole essay was just following maybe himself as the marble going through his life as the chain event. So you can write about anything. It's just, how are you going to connect it back to you, and why is it important that we're learning this information about you?
I love all of the advice you both gave. I think one thing that's really daunting when it comes to personal statements is thinking that you need to talk about this groundbreaking, life-changing experience that you might not necessarily feel like you've had yet. How do both of you kind of tackle that with your students? Is there, I know you mentioned like finding things about that make you who you are and writing about those, but do you have any other thoughts on kind of figuring out what is big enough to write about?
Well, for one, I would say the process is so introspective. You almost have to map out what you've gone through, or events that may have impacted you that you didn't even realize, or passions that are really just close to home that you didn't feel important to write on. Because I always get a lot of students, they don't think it's important enough to talk about, but it actually is something that is really the root of their passions, but they don't think it's important. So they end up just never talking about it. So it's always digging it out of the person to, I would say map out your life thus far, map out things that have been challenges and passions, and start there.
Yeah, the other thing I would add, and I'll get this a little later, but what part of what I do in my work is asking why, right? Okay, this is important to you, why? But then actually getting to like this exercise of like 5 whys, and almost to the point of it being like super annoying that you just keep getting asked why again. But yeah, I definitely encourage you to ask yourself, okay, if I say, what is something that makes me happy? And then ask myself, why does that make me happy? And then again, like, but why does that? Why? And I think if you can kind of get to that, even small experiences, like, maybe something as simple as like, it makes me happy to have, hot chocolate and marshmallows in the morning. And then if you really like get down to it and ask yourself why, you might get to something a little bit deeper. You don't have to talk about something big, as long as it's something that says something big about you. So it's not that you have to have like a crazy experience that no one's ever had before. It's really just the way that you can show that you're self-aware and you have reflected upon your experiences and what they've meant to you. So I think don't be intimidated by, I don't have an amazing, unique experience. It's really more the way that you think about it and speak to it.
I love both of those answers. Thank you. Yeah, that's a question that we definitely see a lot. All right, so after you've made a list, the next step is to reflect. And I think we did touch on this a little bit just now, but we're going to dive into it a little bit more.
Awesome. So yes, definitely reflect. And maybe some prompts to help you reflect are, have you experienced any unique challenges in your life? If so, how have you overcome them? But also remember that unique is different to everyone, right? Like unique is as you can be. So really remember that you're the only one that has the same accumulation of experiences that you have. So we want to hear that. Even if you feel that it's not special, it is special, and value that. How do you specifically intend to contribute to your field of interest in the future? maybe that's something that you can dive further into and start thinking, why is this impactful as far as what I want to study or what I'm doing? Even if it's maybe you created a certain organization at your school, why was that special to you? And how do you see this growing in the future? Or how does your unique experience set you up for a successful career as a student and a professional? Really dive deep and just brainstorm on the questions. Even if you have a whole map, web thing happening on a paper, it's fine. Just start and just dive deep into it.
Fantastic. Anything else to add here, Marina?
I think I would just say, especially around kind of those questions that have to do with like your chosen field or your field of interest, one thing that I often hear is that, like, I don't know, I'm not sure. Can I really say, I want to do this if I'm not exactly sure? And I guess the one thing I would just say is, like, are any of us sure? I've changed careers like a million times. I went to business school and I'm a researcher. So I think in the moment you make the best decision you have with the information that you have, and the way that you figure out if it's right for you is kind of by trying it. So if you think, medicine might be your field of interest, like, why do you think that? And kind of getting into that. I think more about why you're interested in it and what you think you can contribute to it than worrying too much about, okay, but what if I change my mind?
You are definitely allowed to change your minds. And I'm sure everyone attending will change your minds at least once about your major or what you want to do. It's a good thing. So I think we just went through these as well. All right, so step 4, picking your topic and creating an outline or 2 or 3 outlines. Marina.
Arianna, did you want to speak to this one, or?
Apologies. Apologies. Okay, so pick your topic and create an outline. So now that you've written down your ideas, you can play around with them, see how they weave into one another to create a powerful narrative. But more importantly, even if you can't create that formal outline, just really get your ideas out, because maybe even reading them to others around you can help jog as far as how are these ideas connected to one another. Don't feel limited to exploring more than one topic. Explore as many as if you are early in your stage of writing, obviously try and avoid waiting till the last minute. The more pressure you put on yourself, sometimes it makes diamonds, sometimes it's just hard pressed coal. So just make sure you give yourself enough time to work on what you can, but write the outlines for as many different topics as you see fit, if you have enough time to, and read them out to others. That way you can get the feel and opinion as far as, am I hitting everything that I can, or maybe there are things that I missed that I can speak to. So maybe work with, maybe talk to your parents or your family or friends or counselor, or your quad counselor, and work through some of the topics that you have.
Fantastic. Anything else here, Marina?
I think that's awesome. Just like, start, write something, like, don't like it, ditch it. The more different kind of ideas you can start building out, the easier it'll be.
So I'm hearing the both of you say that the first thing that you write doesn't have to be your final draft.
Rewrite. No, sometimes I've had students, they've written their essay was done, they're ready to go, and then they get this brilliant idea at the last minute, and they're like, hey, I have to write on this. Go with that. You know what I mean? Sometimes the idea hits you in the middle of nowhere. So it's hard to say as far as just limiting yourself to just one idea and one rewrite.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about some tips for successful brainstorming, and then we'll go into a Q&A. So keep popping those questions in the Q&A box, and you have Marina and Arianna here to answer them for you and give you give you advice.
Yeah, so I just love this first tip. I wish someone had given it to me when I was applying to schools. I think the idea of journaling as you kind of go throughout high school as early as you can is such a good idea. I personally feel like I have a terrible memory, but going through something like that would be so helpful to spark kind of like the pattern recognition and figuring out what things were important to me. I think another reason this is awesome is because some of the best essays I've read are very vulnerable. And I think it can be very hard to be vulnerable in this context. But the more that you can kind of be honest and really introspective, the better. And, you know, a journal feels like a very safe space to be vulnerable. So I just really love this idea. And I even think of it now. Now I do keep a journal just of, you know, things my kids do that I think are funny. And I'll go back to it every, you know, few months and go back and read some of the entries. And it totally sparks themes for me and just like memories and wonderful things that really do create meaning for me. So just what a great idea, like do it. And then, yeah, we mentioned obviously draft and redraft. You write something out, it's kind of one way in your head, and then you get on paper, it might look sort of like what you want it to look like, but really get in there and give it a second look, give it a third look, give it a lot of looks, and it'll get stronger and stronger. And I also love this last one. I think this can feel kind of uncomfortable, but it's a really great way to get kind of that feedback about some of the things that others might know about you that you didn't realize or weren't able to articulate. Talking to your friends and family, getting their perspective on what might be unique about you. I think one other reason talking to your close friends and family could also be helpful is like if you have an idea and you can share it with a friend or family, that can just be a really good way to get it from mushy, like confusing thing in your brain to clear articulation of the point that you want to make. I recently read this kind of interesting book. I forget what it's called, but it was essentially about how to communicate effectively and shorten your communication and communicate in a world where people don't have a very long attention span. And one of the tips that I took away from it that I thought was really helpful is before you even write something down, tell it to a friend, because you're just going to save so much time by articulating it to someone else and seeing if they get what you're trying to say or not. So
that's, I think, great advice. Anything else here, Arianna, before we move to tips part 2?
No, that was awesome.
All right, so some more tips here.
Awesome. So reading personal statement samples. So reading personal statement examples can give you ideas about how you can craft your story. It'll make outlining and choosing your topic much smoother when you have some direction and guidance. The only thing I would say is when you're reading personal statement samples from others, do not try and copy the style that others have written in. Everyone has their own voice, their own perspective. And really a writing style is almost like someone's signature. It is very recognizable to each individual. So I just say if you are going through and reading the accepted excerpts from different students, just make sure that you are not trying to copy it, exactly. Write from an authentic place. So writing an authentic voice, don't write in a style that doesn't sound like you. So how we were talking about earlier, trying to morph yourself to fit the school's values or style that might not mesh with your own values or your own style, that's something to be aware of. So write authentically from your perspective and write about something unique to you. So you don't need to write what you think the admissions committees want to hear. Write from your own perspective, all of the experiences that you've gone through or your own passions and interests, and let the admissions committee hear who you are, not what they want to hear. And don't hold back. As you do your initial reflections and write down your thoughts and ideas, give it your all. Write out truly everything that comes to mind. Let it be therapeutic, let it flow naturally. Think of it like a journal, your own safe space. This is your voice that you get to finally let others hear you and see you beyond just the application. This is your chance to let yourself shine. You're already a star. You're just letting the world shine. You're letting your world see you shine. So feel free to say anything outrageous and whatever comes to mind. And while you might not use everything you write down, you never know how one thought can help tell your story.
I think you touched on something very important there with not writing what you think the admissions committee wants to hear. And I think that's something that we touch on in a lot of our webinars is don't choose extracurriculars because it's what you think college wants to see from you. And so I think you'll hear us at Quad talk about that again and again, but I think for your personal statement, it's especially true.
So important.
Marina, anything else here?
Yep. Great, thank you. I feel inspired to write a personal statement.
Too. All right, well, let's go on to our Q&A section. So we have some fantastic questions coming in and we'll try to get through as many as possible. The first one, I know we did touch on this in a previous slide, but I do think it's important. It's something that I definitely had trouble with when I was writing my personal statement, but is it okay that I haven't had any life-changing experiences to truly develop a unique personal statement? And again, it's a question I think every single person has. Do either of you have any good tips here?
Yeah, I can kick it off. So I would just, reframe this a little bit in that the life-changing experience and the unique personal statement are not one and the same. You could have a very life-changing experience, but if you can't speak to it in a meaningful way, then it's not really a unique personal statement. And on the other hand, you could have had nothing crazy happening in your life, which is awesome, and enjoy it. And you could have a really unique way of thinking about it. So do not feel like you have to have something that happened to you that has never happened to anyone else ever in the history of the world to be able to write something meaningful. This is about how you handle experiences and how you process the things that happen to you and how you learn from the things that happen to you or what you want to learn, and not about the specific events. That'd be my take.
Great, it's a good tip. Arianna, anything else there?
Absolutely. And I do want to say, your life-changing experiences, your every experience you have is changing your life in some way or another. So it does not have to be this monumental, huge change at once. Take every experience is altering your direction. So just think of it that way and change that perspective.
I love that.
All right, so going back to one of our first slides talking about research. So regarding the mission and cultural information for colleges, how accurate are they and should we really base our decision on it? And are there other places you recommend where we can get more information regarding that information for schools? I will again say we do have a webinar coming up where we will talk about this further, but do either of you have a quick answer for this now?
I would say talking to students that are currently there or former alumni or going to visit the school's campus, talking to faculty there, actually doing a program, a summer or if you have enough time a program where you actually can take classes there. There are multiple ways to get more accurate information. You can look at YouTube's, you can look on blogs, or there are many ways that you can get the perspective of how it really is on the campus or the information that might not be on the website. How accurate it will be based on whoever wrote its perspective. So you have to take that with what it is.
Thank you. All right. So someone else is wondering if we can give any thoughts, any ideas about what people have written, like what topics people have used for personal statements that you both have seen to either, I guess, and we also have someone else asking for examples. So I'm going to make sure when we send out the email, we'll add some personal statement examples from our website. But do either of you have any great personal statement topics or themes that come to mind?
I mean, honestly, I think I've seen everything from people writing about like mismatched socks to, you know, everything. Yeah, I think this is definitely, it can be really inspiring to read those examples. So definitely highly recommend doing that. But just seeing like a very large variety of topics, people writing about, yeah, like I said, mismatched socks, favorite cereal, an important event, a presentation, like a sibling, a memory with a sibling, tons of different things. And then, obviously it gets to what is the message or what is the so what, but in terms of the vehicle that they use to get there, there's a ton of variety.
Yes, absolutely agree. Again, the vehicle, like you said, I like that perspective. It's not so much what it is, what the theme is, what the vehicle is, but what is the message. I've seen an interesting one where where the student is talking about tracking mud into the house and being scolded by their mother, and how they related the mud being tracked through the home as the experiences that they've had throughout life or throughout their life thus far, and how life can be messy, but you know what I mean? Like it's many different ways that you can be creative. I've seen really unusual ways to relate things to something else, but it's creative. So have fun, brainstorm, go through those creative writing exercises that Marina mentioned earlier. I think those are really awesome to kind of just kickstart that creative, those creative juices. But again, there are a number of topic ideas that you can find online, as well as on the Quad website that Hallie will be putting in. But the sky's the limit with what you can write on.
Thank you both. And again, we'll send some examples in the email that will go out to you all with a recording of the webinar. But I think you can also find, if you just Google search personal statements for accepted students from X school 2022, 2023, you'll get a ton of examples to work off of. All right. So someone else asked, like, what if you haven't joined that many groups in your life? And I think that question also kind of extends to like, what if you maybe haven't joined that many extracurriculars, or you don't feel like you've had a lot of life-changing experiences? I know we sort of answered this, but do either of you have any thoughts there?
Okay, so if you haven't joined that many groups in your life, do you have time to join any thus far? I don't know where you are in the process or what year you are in school, but if you have time, I would say potentially looking at what interests you have and what maybe you can get involved in. If it's a challenge to do so, maybe look and see why you haven't joined any groups thus far, and maybe lean into that as far as, is it a reason or anything that prevented you from doing so, that you could potentially write on. And just because you haven't joined extracurriculars, if that's what you're referring to as groups, it doesn't mean that you don't have interest that you can still write on for your personal essay.
Great.
Also add that sometimes you can think about, okay, well, which are the areas that I have been involved in, and have I had different kinds of roles in those? So for example, you might be you know, in the drama club, but you had like a finance role in it, and you've been an actor, and you've done something else, because maybe that's the thing that makes you super excited. And so you've worn a lot of hats. So you can also think about things that way a little bit.
Great. Thank you. All right, another question. So if I write about why I'm interested in a specific field of study in the personal statement, how do you make sure it doesn't conflict with the why major essay question?
That's a good one. I can take a pass at it. I think that oftentimes you want to just make sure, like, the idea of what you want to do with your life and what major you want to study are pretty big topics. You can talk about, you know, the motivation behind it and the early experiences that you had that maybe have contributed to this passion. You can talk about how you see yourself contributing to that career, how you see yourself being kind of a unique or nuanced, whatever it is, whether it's a doctor or a lawyer, an artist. And then there are also these pieces of, okay, there's this major and there's this school, and what does that look like specifically here? So I think what I'm trying to get to is that it's a big topic. Yes, you don't want to write about the same thing in each one, but you can sort of think about, how do I strategically divide this topic up and make sure that each essay provides like a nuanced piece of information about either why I want to do it, why I would be good at it, what I would contribute to it. So the why major essay might go into a little bit more detail about some of the specifics that you, specific things you might want to learn, where the, you know, personal statement is probably going to talk a little bit more about like your background, your experiences, and then maybe a little bit more briefly allude to the major and the career path. That's just one way to do it. I'll stop there and let others chime in.
That's exactly it. Yeah. The and also the why major essays are typically like around 150, you know, they're not that long, whereas your personal essay, you're going to have 650 words or less to kind of dive into what you want to talk about, what has shaped your life, or what makes you you. And your why major essay, like Marina said, is going to be more specific to the particular school that you're applying to as well. So why this major at this university as well? What do they offer that makes you want to even study the major?
I think those are both great answers. All right, well, I think that wraps us up for today. I want to thank Arianna and Marina for being here. It was great to have you both go through this topic. And thank you for everyone that joined us tonight. We will be hosting part 2 of this webinar next week. So go ahead and sign up online for that, where you signed up for this webinar. And you can learn kind of the next phase of actually writing a personal statement. And we also have some other good webinars coming up too. So feel free to go check those out. And again, you'll be getting an email with a recording of this webinar within the next day or so. And again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
You.
Bye, everyone.